They said he who meets the most people will win. You mean I just got to get up the most shots? Fine.
Talk us through that identity shift. Why do you think so many athletes are reckless with their finances? What were the most effective strategies for developing leads?
So I was meeting somewhere between 20 and 25 people a day.
What do you think are the most foundational things for financial success?
One of my mentors told me, nothing in this world is new. It's all borrowed and repurposed. The best thing about this is you can borrow and repurpose everything I'm telling you and make it your own. Just add another word.
What's going on, everybody? It's Lorenzo with Link Creative. We're welcomed by none other than Chris Gandy, CEO and founder of Legacy Wealth Group, the current president of NAIFA, the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisory. Chris used to be a member of the University of Illinois men's basketball team. He then went on to be a Chicago Bull, where he had a career in the NBA for a few years. Chris takes us through transitioning out of the NBA into the professional world and what financial freedom truly looks like. So without further ado, Chris Gandy, Link Live, episode 18. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share these videos. It goes a long way. We really appreciate you guys' support as always. Let's hop into the episode.
We're back with another episode of Link Live. We're welcomed today by a very special guest, close friend of mine here, Chris Gandy, founder, CEO of Legacy Wealth Group, president of NAIFA, which we'll get into. But you honestly have a million accolades, so we're gonna touch them all here. Chris and I have known each other now for a couple years. He is a pioneer in insurance, tax strategy, financial literacy, and all things there. So I'm excited to get into this episode. He has a lot of wisdom and a lot of stories. So, Chris, thank you for being here.
I appreciate you inviting me in, and hopefully this is one of the accolades that I can add to the list of things that I've accomplished in my career, is being a part of a wonderful show like yours.
Amazing. Awesome. Like all shows, and like I was kind of telling you off camera, I want to start with younger Chris and kind of your upbringing, your story, and how we got to this point. A lot of people know you through your days of playing professional basketball and your days playing basketball for Illinois, which we'll get to. But I want to start kind of from, adolescence, even like high school Chris, where you were from, how you kind of got into the space you're in today.
Sure. If I just rewind the tape a little bit, I'm from Starkville, Mississippi, so a southern boy, and my mother eventually moved up to about an hour south of Chicago, the Kankakee area. Kankakee is very blue collar, and I learned a lot there. I learned a lot about just the essence of being young and growing up, making mistakes and learning how to fall in love with at least one of the games. The first game I played was baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I love baseball, America's pastime. And as a pitcher and a first baseman, I was really good because I was really long and lanky, and so had an opportunity in Kankakee to be part of a great couple teams, and learned to fall in love with the idea of winning and losing, and slowly but surely, people kept saying, maybe you should try basketball, because my uncles, right? So I have 5. They were all pretty good at basketball. And then one of my uncles had gone on to play college basketball.
Okay.
And so they were all really tall and wildly athletic. And so they said, well, you should try it. And I held on to dear life of not playing the game because other people told me to do it.
Yeah.
So I learned to be stubborn in Kankakee too. So, but shortly after that, I started to play basketball, and I wasn't very good at it at first. And then I was determined to really work at it and figure out if I could be good at it. So between my 7th and 8th grade year, decided that I wanted to study the game, really start to play the game a little bit. And between 6th and 7th grade, got pretty good. Between 7th and 8th grade, got really good. Was one of the better ones on the 7th, 8th grade team. From going not playing in 6th grade at all, sitting the bench on the B team.
Mm-hmm.
Many people may remember the B team. They used to call them the B team bombers. Because basically you would score a total of maybe 8 to 10 points a game
Wow.
the whole team.
Oh my God.
And but you learn a lot. You learn camaraderie. You know, you learn that it's all not about winning and losing. You know, at times I wish I could go back to being as innocent as I was at that time, where it wasn't about winning and losing. It was just about being a part of a team and
Right.
being part of a culture where you got a chance to learn and just have fun. Right. That was the essence of what I learned there. Went on to high school and grew 6 inches in a summer,
Wow.
and got noticed by some high school other people we were playing against, and got noticed nationally after scoring a bunch of points here and there, and they said this kid has a chance, and got invited to the ABC camp in Indianapolis, which was a regional camp Nike. And from there met Sonny Vaccaro, which is the czar of Nike. Right? You ever go back and read anything about Sonny Vaccaro and Nike? Sonny Vaccaro was one of the ones that was connected to shortly after Jordan, like the Jordan brand, and I mean he was the go-to guy at the time. When Nike was launched, wanted to go into basketball. Matter of fact, I think that movie that came out, Sonny Vaccaro was mentioned because he was the pipeline of future talent for Nike, and got a chance to play in Sonny's ABC camp, which was a premier camp at the time, and did pretty well.
Nice.
So rose up to one of the top 100 prospects in the country. Got to number 43 or 45 or something. Lo and behold, doors, people start knocking at the door saying, hey, we think you should come play college basketball. But college basketball for me was never an intent. College basketball for me was a ticket to get out of the economic situation and get away from home.
Sure.
And get an opportunity to live independently as a young man. So that's what it really was for me, a ticket to education. So
Yeah.
that's what I took it as.
So back in that time, you were getting scouted. You ultimately decided on Illinois. Was there any kind of reasoning behind that? A little closer to Kankakee. Were there any other schools you were interested in at the time?
Yeah, I was interested in a couple, but I had to go where I knew I would actually maybe get an opportunity. At the time, Illinois was not in a great time in Illinois. Illinois was actually on a limited scholarship opportunity because they were on probation
Okay.
at the time. So they only had 2 scholarships, but that offers from Ohio State, offers from Michigan State, Northwestern. I'm thinking about the Big Ten teams, but most of the teams in the Big Ten, I think the only one I didn't get an offer from in the Big Ten was Penn State, and I think they were relatively new at the time.
Okay.
So, it was really my choice. Out of the top 50 schools, I probably had a chance to probably go to 40 of them, probably 40. So it was
Unreal.
really my pick to go wherever I thought was going to suit my talents the best they possibly could. And again, I had no idea what it was going to be, but I was open. I wanted to go. I wanted to leave home, not look back, go and create, be independent, go be a young man, and go have some fun in college.
Love it. At what point in college did sort of that same spark or same feeling in high school where you're like, this is probably going to turn into something still a bit more serious, college, maybe an opportunity for me here? When did that experience happen in college when you thought maybe I have an opportunity to go pro here?
I didn't. Believe it or not, I didn't.
Okay.
It was always a surprise, which is still today, I'm still shocked I even had a chance. But for my first 3 years at the University of Illinois, I got a chance to play, but I wasn't playing to my potential. Some may be circumstance, some may be because of timing, some may be because of just my confidence in myself, because of the actual structure and the actual coaching system, the system in which I was playing under. For one reason or another, I couldn't build that confidence that aligned with my skill set. And my senior year, I was pretty good, but my senior year, we had an opportunity to play under a new coach, new regime. So I got a chance to start fresh in everybody's mind.
Got it.
And so they didn't know any of the history of me being somewhat timid when I was out playing. because I didn't want to make a mistake, right? The worst thing you want to do is go out and make a mistake, but because you're playing timid, you're not playing as aggressive as you should.
Right.
And so the coaching structure we were under, if you made a mistake, it was one that could sit you on the bench for a couple games.
Wow.
And so, you know, as a freshman, sophomore, you're like, I don't want to make a mistake. And you're playing on your heels, you're playing passive versus playing aggressive. And I remember our coach saying one time, he goes, "You're the best practice player we've got on the team." And I'm like, well, put me in the game and don't pull me out, right, when I make a mistake, because everybody's going to make a mistake. It doesn't matter if it's in business, if it's in life. You're going to make mistakes, and your ability to learn from your mistakes so that you can pivot, or your opportunity to improve, so then you can identify those mistakes openly and not feel ashamed for making them, right? Not saying you feel good about them, but also not be ashamed because you made it and feel like your opportunity has slipped through your fingertips because of that.
Right.
And so getting a new coach was fresh ground.
It's like a reset.
It was a reset for me. And it gave me the opportunity to learn from a new coach that played differently. So we played in the Big Ten, which was, you know, you bang around 7-footers, 260, 270 pounds. As you see, I'm thin to win. Still haven't gained a bunch of weight, but I was always a thinner framed guy.
Sure.
I would like to call it a skinny athletic. That's what I was. I was fairly slim, so I had an opportunity to get up and down the court faster than a lot of the big guys. I could jump a little bit higher than the big guys, and I could actually, you know, one thing my coach taught me in high school was that if you can always score the basketball, big guys that can shoot will always have a place in basketball and white.
Yeah.
So my coach was religious about shooting and scoring. So I always had the ability to hit the 18 to 20-foot jump shot, even in high school. And big guys just would be stuck in the paint. They wouldn't come out and guard me. So I'd just light them up. And then when they came out, I'd just go around them and dunk on them. You know what I mean? Like, it was stuff like that. So, I could use my athletic ability over that. So the opportunity of starting something new or getting a new coach just allowed for me, like you said, to reset and then prove, not only to everyone else, but prove to myself that I'm supposed to be here.
Sure.
And, with the new NIL, I would have got another year. I might have been lottery by then, but under a new coach. But new coach came in, brought in a new regime, a new scheme.
Okay.
We played fast instead of wait till they come down and bang up everybody. We didn't play that way. And allow for us to use our athletic ability to speed the game up and play at the pace in which we were comfortable playing. And that fit right in the way I was built and the way in which I went about playing the game going forward.
Nice. Well, then you go on to playing for the Bulls, right, out of college?
Yeah.
At a time where
they were pretty good. Not
to date you here, but what year would that have been when you entered the league?
No, seriously. I graduated from the University of Illinois this fall of '96, and in '97 I finished at Illinois. So that season '97,
okay,
I was a free agent in Chicago. So people were like, I looked at the drafts, I didn't see you. Well, no, you got to look for it. So most people don't realize how the game actually works. Is the Bulls that year only had 2 picks.
Okay.
The last pick of the first round and a pick in the second round. Their pick that year was Rusty LaRue. You can Google it if you want. Mm-hmm. And Keith Booth Keith was out of Maryland, and Rusty was out of Kansas.
Okay.
And those were their 2 picks. Their intent wasn't to keep any of them, mm-hmm. right? Their intent was to fill their roster. And then so you had 5 or 6 or 7 of us playing for what they call a roster spot. And so you might remember Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, Dennis, but those are 5 guys. And then you might remember Kukoc and Luke Longley and those guys, and that's another 3 or 4 guys. But typically an NBA roster will have 14, 15, 16 guys. And the reason why they have those guys is because those are the guys that on every day, we're the ones that they actually practice against. They don't practice against themselves. Sure. They're actually practicing against, and then we would rotate on and off of who dresses and things like that. So an opportunity to hang out in Chicago and see some of the best basketball from the front row.
Unbelievable.
Pretty cool.
Being around guys at that level, what were some of their daily habits, mentalities that maybe rubbed off on you, whether it was directly or not, something that you observed that you saw compound into success?
Well, the biggest thing I saw is that they practiced just like they played. Like, practice was a full-time game. Practice was the hardest thing ever, because if you practice that hard, then the games become easy.
Right.
And because they were practicing at that level, you learn how to play at that level, or you try your best to keep up to play at that level. But every possession's competition. Every time you step on the floor, expect that the ball's coming your way.
Yep.
Every time there's a competition, you need to try to win, right? So it's just, there were some things that were ingrained in the players there that just was top notch. It was the eliteness of what they have accomplished in the past, and here's how our expectations of the people that are going to be affiliated with our team.
Wow.
So when they roll a ball out there, you understand what time it is. It's not time to tie your shoe. You better be ready, right?
Yeah.
Because they're coming at you full speed. So it was great, though. There's so many things at prep. I saw guys work out more than they played basketball. I'll tell you, most people did not realize this, but which is just insane to me. Some of the mentalities, because it was so extreme. But we'd see Dennis and a couple of guys work out before practice, full-blown workout. I'm talking about lifting weights, pushing weight. I mean, heavy weight. And you're like, they're coming to practice for 2-3 hours. They're going to be gassed, right?
Yeah.
Come to practice, go get an ice bath, whatever, and then go lift weights again. I mean, I'm like, wow, okay, so that's a different and that's the difference between a commitment and an interest.
Right.
Is that, the difference is inconvenience. And so it was understandably very inconvenient. I'm sure they didn't feel good about doing it. I'm sure they didn't want to do it. But they understood by doing that, their body was prepared for when it came time to, when everybody else tired, they could count on their body because they had put it through so much.
Right.
Yeah, that was the commitment I saw at so many levels. Studying of the game film, like to the nth degree of being able to study plays and people's tendencies when it comes down to catching the ball, where they run to on the floor, down to each person they would memorize those things. So they would know people's tendencies prior to them even thinking about what they were going to do. So
right.
If you can focus on that a little bit, and then the execution on the triangle. The execution on the triangle was a book probably this thick of options off the triangle. If you didn't know what to do, they tell you to go sit on the bench. They tell you to go sit over there and know the playbook. And so if you think about it in everyday life, no one tells you what to do or how to do it. Right? No one tells you what plays to run. But they always tell you got to do whatever you're going to do and you decide to do. You got to put 110% into it. So
absolutely,
in business and life and love and kids, and you got to put 110% into whatever you decide to do, and you got to commit to whatever that is. And when you commit, you got to commit 120%. Now, I think we all are a little, well, I don't want to commit and lose. I don't want to. But think about that. If I go back to sports, imagine if I played with the idea that I'm playing not to lose versus playing to win. That's a losing proposition. I'm going to lose before I really start.
Right.
And so that mentality is something that I think has helped. I still struggle with it because those guys were built that way, right? And so because they were so good at that one thing and they were able to compartmentalize those things, the other things in their life also suffer. So,
sure.
The people love athletes. They love the idea of athlete this. But what most people don't realize is we're human just like everybody else. And so the things that you learn to do there also hurt some of the other things.
Other areas.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you go on to play three or so seasons in the league, play some time in France overseas, right? One thing that sticks out to me, or one question I wanted to ask is, Was financial services always in the back of your mind? Did you go in intentionally with that? Is that something that naturally progressed after you were exposed to some of the experiences in the league?
No, I saw that a lot of athletes made bad decisions with money.
Yep.
So I saw a lot of recklessness as it dealt with money, as it deals with the way they dealt with business. So I thought that I could be a conduit to help players, because the one thing I did learn about athletes is they trust each other. There'd be millions of dollars, and to date, I've not heard of this yet, and I'm still waiting to hear. It's very rare. I don't think I've ever heard it, actually. I've never heard of a stick up in a locker room, right? I've never heard of somebody getting all their jewelry stole in a locker room, right? Usually there's millions of dollars in a locker room.
Sure.
Jewelry, cars, and your locker's open. It's not like it's locked. It's whoever has access to the locker room can go into it. But the thing is, there's an unwritten rule amongst athletes is that we don't take from each other, because we all went through the fire together, right? We all went through the struggle together, and that's part of it. So it's been a lesson that I've learned, and we've been able. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a resource for other athletes, so they didn't end up statistics.
Why do you think so many athletes are reckless with their finances? Obviously, I'm sure it's driven by ego and the fame and the perception and all of that, but from being someone who's seen both sides, do you think there's another reason driving kind of the reckless behavior with some of it?
Well, I think it's a couple things, and I'm sure there's more similar to what you've said, but I think a lot of it has to do with the environment in which they grew up.
Sure.
I believe we are a byproduct of what we see, hear, and do. And so kids tend to mimic the behaviors of their parents. And that's, that's academic. It's not a belief of Chris Gandy's. If you study, just forget athletes for a moment, people have a tendency to mimic the behaviors of their parents. And so if you saw your parents make smart financial decisions, you have a tendency to actually make smarter financial decisions because of it.
Right.
If you saw your parents just abuse credit cards and things like that, you have a tendency, whether you wanted to or not, subconsciously, that undercurrent of what you're actually doing will have a tendency to do the same types of things. And now we flip it back to athletes. So many athletes come from lower income environments, or environments where they might be a single parent household, or they may be from a household that might not have the financial means to be able to understand the economic, what I call fundamentals of building and sustaining wealth. And now all of a sudden you have somebody who's never had it. The people you love and care about have never been aware of it or accustomed to it or dealt with it. And now they've got it, and now they're out on their own trying to figure it out. And so I think much of it even more of it has to do with where they came from and the environment in which they're in. And then there's no boundaries or rules around the spending in sports, quite frankly. There's no guide rails to say, okay, if you do this and this, you'll be successful.
Right.
So I think a lot of it has to do with where they came from, and then the fact that there's just no boundaries around.
100%.
Yeah.
So you segue into financial services, and I feel like a lot of athletes, former athletes, get into the financial services space. It seems like a natural progression. You kind of just alluded to the reasoning as to why you were passionate about it. But talk us through that identity shift. It's one of the developing topics I want to talk about today is identity shifts, understanding your identity, right? I'm sure up until that point, so many people identified with Chris as the basketball player, the basketball guy, this and that, right? And then you make a shift into financial services. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about what that looked like, how you overcame that, and also what it looked like to segue and kind of transfer into a new industry at that time, building up your book and stuff like that.
Well, I think it's hard, and I'll speak on behalf of the athletes that are out there. Is I've always said what I did and who I was as a person were two different things.
Yeah.
So if you think about an athlete, it goes down. So if we rewind the tape, do you remember back in the day, it was athletes are role models. Athletes are role models. And there was a big commercial on that. And then the media jumped onto it and said, athletes are role models. And then Charles Barkley finally said, athletes are not role models for your kids. You guys are the first role model, or their parents. So it's the idea that athletes are held at a almost on a pedestal,
Right.
of understanding that this is who they are. And so it doesn't matter if you're knowledgeable or not, it doesn't matter if you're smart or not, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're an athlete. Like Magic Johnson, it doesn't matter if he's won 3 championships, it doesn't matter if he's still Magic Johnson, right? And so what do you recognize Magic Johnson? The first thing you say is basketball.
Yep.
But most people don't realize Magic Johnson's made more money outside of basketball than he did playing basketball. Michael Jordan made more money outside of basketball than he did playing basketball. So why is it that society recognizes him as basketball? Is because it was the first introduction of who he was as a person. Well, it's the same for me. It's who I was, how I was brought on the scene was not why I was there. But what I did with that was up to me. So for me, getting into financial services was I was really good with numbers. It was natural in high school. I was just really good with numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I excel at sports because I was actually good at numbers. I understand percentages, and I also understood ratios, and I also understood actually angles on the court, and just weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
Almost savantish. But I just really understood those type of things. And so after an injury, most of my contracts looked like they were pretty much drying up, and then a lot of them got paid out to me within a small window of time.
Okay.
And I wanted to figure out what to do with the money, and I heard my mom in the back of my head saying, don't spend all your money in one place, like all mothers do, I think, right? They want to look out for us. And I didn't want to make all the mistakes that everybody else has made. So I jumped into financial services by default. I like to say that this industry chose me. I didn't choose that. Same thing as the identity thing. It chose me because I came into it with trying to understand what to do with this opportunity that's ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
What to do with this money that I've gotten paid, and not displace it with this is going to be, I'm rich. To think of it as this is an opportunity for me to unlock the next door of my life. And that's what it did. So I came in and talked to a guy at the time. He was with a company. He said, Chris, I want to talk to you about what are you going to do next? What are you going to do with your money? Those type of things. And I said, I don't know. And after an hour or two, he sat down. He said, okay, well, here's where you should put it. You should put some here, put some here, put some here. Actually laid out a wonderful plan and actually said, this is why you're never going to run out of money. This is why you're going to be a multimillionaire over the course of your life. And I'm like, I don't have multi-millions, but it's going to grow to that.
Yeah.
And so it was really fascinating to me. And by nature, I'm pretty curious. I'm always curious about people's story. How did you get here? Tell me about your story. What were the struggles? I'm really curious about people. So I was curious about him. Like, how did you get here? He told me his story. He said, I was recruited back from college. He played sports in college. He goes, I was able to take what I learned in sports and use it here. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, just like shooting jump shots. You got to take how many shots a day? And I tell him, he said, imagine if you can make that many phone calls or reach out to that many people, right? Are you going to make them all? I said, no, you're not, right? And he'd come back and say, okay, so how many do you think you're going to make? Maybe 30, 40%, depending where I'm shooting from. He goes, okay, so 30, 40%, you're going to talk to those, but all of those aren't going to go in. Some of those are going to hit the rim, some of those backboard. Are they all going to go in swish? No, probably not. How many are going to go in swish? Maybe like 10%. Mm-hmm. He goes, okay, perfect. He goes, that ratio 10-3-1 will live with you forever. He goes, if you can do that, he goes, you'll be successful in this career. I said, wow. Maybe, right? And I understood numbers.
Yep.
Right? So if you go back to what I said, numbers just made sense to me. So I know I didn't make every shot. I didn't make every shot. I didn't shoot. So I shot every time. I shot as many as I could, get as many shots as I could. There was a standard that was there that the organization set out. This is how many people you need to contact a day. So I took that number and actually did twice as much. So my progression, my growth would grow faster. And I became more skilled at playing the game that other people were playing because I didn't have a network. My network was people that I knew growing up with that didn't have money.
Right.
So their network were people that maybe they grew up with money and they had a great network, people that ran companies, things like that. So I didn't have that. So I had to fight my way out of trying to figure it out. And the only way I did that is by doing it more than other people.
Right.
And so financial services kind of found me. But I go to your identity piece. Who I am now and what I do are two different things. Don't confuse the two. What I do now is I help people try to show up as their best version of themselves financially through education and empowerment, so then they can actually live a better quality of life. Not for me, for themselves and their families, for the people they love and care about. So they can be better in their communities. Because if we have solid people that can stand on their own financially in their own communities, the communities will rise up and be better for it. Right?
Yep.
But where do they go get those resources from? Right? There has to be people that give more than they receive. And so the idea is that we could create that place, that environment for people to do that. That's the reason why I feel called to this industry, is to help as many people as we can.
Amazing. At the time when you started, what were some of the most important and I guess effective strategies for developing relationships, for developing leads and continuing conversations, right? There wasn't as much tech obviously as there is today to do that. What were some of those early strategies?
My thing was, you won't believe this. Some people may listen to this and say, I can't believe he actually did that, but I did, right? So they said, he who meets the most people will win, regardless of what they say, regardless of how they do it, regardless. And I was like, you mean I just got to get up the most shots? Fine. So they told us that you had to go out and you had to meet about 10 people a week, introduce yourselves, get their business card, tell them who you are. I think they called it an elevator pitch at the time, or whatever it was. I'm not sure. And I did that. And I found that I can only get to so many per day, because there's only so many places I can go where there's people.
Sure.
Because I would go where people are, right? Then I stopped and thought about it, and most people don't do this. Most people don't think about the strategy before they actually implement it. What they try to do is implement a strategy while they're going full speed. So I'll relate it to this. Most people will actually think about driving the car and then changing the tire as they're driving it. That's pretty disastrous, right? So you have to stop the car, change the tire, and then do that. So I kind of stopped for a moment and thought about, where will most people go in the morning? Where will most people go at lunchtime? Where will most people go in the afternoon? If I go there and actually have an intelligent way of introducing myself, I'm somewhat gregarious in nature. I can talk to people. I can actually overcome a couple of objections and just be kind and nice to people. If I have the opportunity to do that, I'm going to ask for the opportunity to earn their business. That's it. Some are going to say yes, some are going to say no, but at least I took the shot.
Right.
So what I decided to do was I decided to go to Panera Bread. It was big where I was at. I decided to go to Panera Bread, and I bought, every morning I would buy 10 coffee gift cards. They were $5. Then I go in line a couple times. I get my tea, sit down, go in line. When the line would get, so between 7 and 8 o'clock, it was really, really, really busy there. And people would have to wait. They'd wait 5 or 7 minutes to actually order their coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So I just go up to people and say, hey, I want to make your day better. I would like to give you something from my heart to yours that would make your day better. And I'd love to give you my business card, and maybe sometime we could sit down and maybe have a cup of coffee together, just like I'm going to buy you. And I would just give out the gift cards, and on the back of it would have my business card. And then other people, I say, do you have a business card? And they say, yeah, of course. And they give me their business card. So I was meeting, literally at breakfast time, I was meeting 5 to 7 people. I was meeting another 5 to 7 people in the afternoon at lunch places. I'd go sit at the bar and sit there, and I'd introduce myself to this person. I found a way to meet people.
Sure.
I go to networking events, after hours, things like that. So I was meeting somewhere between 20 and 25 people a day, every day. And most people were meeting somewhere between 20 to 25 people a week. And so my growth was, there's nothing going to stop me from meeting. I don't need approval to introduce myself to people. And so I just introduced myself to way more people than other people did.
Wow.
And invited them into conversation.
Principle still stands true today, right? With volume and sales and all that. At that time you were with Northwestern Mutual,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you were able to kind of run your own business and leverage the structure that they were able to provide for you at the time. Why do you think Northwestern Mutual gets such a bad rap, like modern day? I don't know if you've heard about that, but at least when I was like getting out of school, or like people were looking to get a job in the financial services field, if you went and pursued something at Northwestern Mutual, I think part of the reason is because like you were just able to get a position without like barely having to interview. But current day they kind of have a bad rap for no reason. But
well, I think the Northwestern Mutual, and I'll relate it to the military, is not for everybody.
Right.
It's a unique training system. I will tell you, I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't go through the Northwestern Mutual training system. So kudos to them, because they developed what I would call the elite training system for the elite salespeople. Period. There's in the insurance industry, there's no one close.
I read something about the $1 Million Club that you were part of, right?
$1 Million Roundtable, right?
Roundtable, yes.
So one of the things that they do is they teach people how to sell insurance at a very high level. That's one thing they do, and they hold people insanely accountable for the way in which they do it. Like there's a metrics, there's a system, there's a process. If you don't follow that process, it's like the military. You're not going to be here. It doesn't mean you can't be in the military. You just can't be in this unit. Right. So if I'm looking at that group of professionals at this time, I'm thinking that it's more like they're like the SEALs or the Delta Force, right? Because it is specific to, doesn't mean you can't be in the military, right? But it just simply means that if you follow that model and you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. So I think it gets a little bit of a bad rap because it's not for everybody. But everybody goes, but so many people go there first, and a lot of people don't have that mental toughness or discipline to do the things that they ask you to do.
That makes sense. So
it's never their fault, right? It's always their fault, right? And so it's never, and sometimes it's just not the right fit,
right?
And that's okay too.
So you pursued a career there for a while until then starting Legacy Wealth Group. Was there anything in between that I'm missing, or it kind of transitioned right into that?
Yeah, so I was at Northwestern Mutual and did a bang-up job there. Brought on a couple of friends, convinced them. I said, listen, you're not doing anything else. Why don't you come join my team? And I taught them how to do the business too, and I recruited some other people. Did the college training thing, was teaching young people how to do the business, got excited, and I'm like, I can lead people. This is kind of cool, just like sports. I was a captain on our team, so I was leading our team too.
Okay.
I was one of the leading scorers, so I was leading by actually doing and by actually, empowering others and encouraging others along the way. So I got into this business thinking, and I've always had a mindset that I wanted to be a leader, not a follower. I've always wanted to be progressive in thought. I've always wanted to be a visionary of actually the industry, not just a reactor, and just not an actor in somebody else's movie. So even when I was playing basketball, I always wanted to be a head coach when I played, right? And so if you think about it, there's the player. If you think about the hierarchy of a sports team, there's the player, there's the GM, there's the assistant coach, there's the head coach, and then there's the owner of the team, right? And what's interesting is the owner can afford to pay all the other people. So that kind of made sense. Like, what do I need to do to become an owner? And in these systems, the way the systems are built at Northwestern, I raised my hand and said, I want to be a coach, right? Because coach was the avenue, coaching others, helping people achieve what they need to achieve. And by that, me achieving what I need to, it allowed for me to tap into the idea of growing from within. So the one thing I didn't do is stop being a producer. So I always was a producer, always on the field of actually creating opportunities and building clients. And then I raised my hand to be in quote unquote management and or a field leader. So I took a field leader position at Northwestern, did well first 2-3 years, and then left Northwestern Mutual and went to Mass Mutual because I thought that my progression was moving slowly because there was only so many seats at the top. There was one seat, which was GA, and that general agent role, that role didn't have my name on it at that company. Doesn't mean it didn't have, just like being a part of a team. It doesn't mean that I can't play in the league because I don't play for the Bulls. Right?
Sure.
I'd just go play for another team. So I took that jersey off, put on another jersey, went to Mass Mutual here in the city of Chicago, joined a group, and helped grow that group to a pretty prominent group in the country. We had probably 6, 7 offices around Chicago. We were doing amazing work. We were recognized nationally as one of the most unique and diverse organizations within the company at Mass Mutual for a long time. And Mass Mutual, great experience. Got a chance to learn, got a chance to build very large groups. Got a chance to lead a couple diversity groups in that space too. It was great. It was great. But that was my first introduction to real corporate America. Fortune 100 company at the time. I think they were Fortune 500. They were 106 at the time. And there were just some cultural things involved in that, as large as that was, that just made it so then locally it was very difficult to work within the infrastructure here if you didn't have a good leader.
Okay.
So if you didn't have a good coach, you couldn't go to the corporate side of it and be like, that guy's not a good coach, get rid of him, right? It was, well, that's not our issue. Like, it's the brand is the brand is the brand is the brand.
Right.
So it just wasn't, it got to a place after about 11 years where him and I, the way in which we thought about doing business was different.
Sure.
My vision for building something significant, the legacy, that's where that comes from. His idea was me, like, how do I build for me? And so we eventually separated.
Okay.
And Legacy Wealth was born. I said I was never going back to the ivory tower, to the tower where they're not connected to the field that way. So we'll figure it out. And 24/7 a day, it became like, recreate yourself. I thought about college. My story goes full circle. I recreated myself in this industry probably 12 times. And it all goes back to, I did it in college. I played on that team for a long time, and then there was a new coach that came in. When that new coach came in, he didn't know anything that happened before, so I got a chance to recreate that identity that you mentioned, who I was. And in their eyes, I don't know who that person was, but this is the person that we know. This is the person that we believe in. And the same thing in our industry. I got a chance to build something from scratch. So if it was messed up, it was messed up because I created it wrong. And we got a chance to start creating that momentum where Legacy Wealth was born.
Very full circle. Very full circle. So that, now we're around 2017. Obviously, you were wildly successful as a producer in financial services. What were some of the early business issues or challenges where you're like, well, I know how to do my job and I'm a master of my craft and I understand my profession and industry, but I haven't tried this full-blown business thing before. What do you remember as some of those like early things that you maybe didn't struggle with, but that you saw as a challenge, as a roadblock that you had to overcome?
I would say just unbridled naivete.
Sure.
I mean, I was naive to the fact that there was tenure in this.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no one's stopping me. I have the talent, I have the wisdom, I have the skill. I can do whatever I want. Arrogance, ego, those are real words that people don't take seriously. Ego wins every time it shows up. So you got to figure out how to put it somewhere where it actually works for you, not against you. But it's a challenge. It was one of the largest challenges because I'm an athlete. I could do this. I'm better than you. I wanted to compete all the time with whatever it was, and there were times I just didn't need to compete. So that was some really difficult. And then organization. To be honest, I hire people now, so they deal with the organization because it's just not. I think people have to understand just in life, there's things you're good at.
Yeah.
There's things you're not good at. And most people will try this, and I heard this from Zig Ziglar's, one of Zig Ziglar's books, and, was the things you're really good at, you're gifted at for a reason. The things you aren't so good at, you need to make enough money so you can hire somebody else who's better at that than you. And I'm like, okay. So organization was never really my strong suit. So I have a tendency to be around people that are really crazy organized
Okay.
because that's their strong suit, right? If you look at my team, they're meticulous about organization, right? Because I'm not so good at it, right? They struggle with, you know, very large visions and really creative and colorful visions of what the future can look like. That's not what they are. They are tactical people.
Sure.
In nature. Same with a lot of the vendors and resources that we use or work with. Same type of thing is, here's a product, here's a service, but this fits you now where you're going. No, let's talk about what that looks like, because that's the exciting part, right? That's where the motivation comes from. That's where the fire and desire comes from, right? Is how do we do that? What's the future look like?
Yeah.
Because I'm never focused on where we are today, because it's nothing more than a byproduct of where I believe and where I came from. That's it. So how do I improve that? And so I'm constantly thinking about the change now that I'm trying to make is shifting from the idea of what success look like to what does significance look like in this lifetime.
How I want to ask that actually. How has that shifted for you? Right? Maybe it stayed the same, but when you started Legacy back in 2017 versus now, how has your definition of success for the agency, for the organization, shifted?
Well, it shifted a little bit because I always thought like other people wanted me to think.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like someone else's definition of success may not look like mine.
Right.
Right. And we spend so much time trying to adopt and adapt ourselves to what their success looks like. Like someone may say Elon Musk is successful because he launched Tesla and because he's got $20 billion. I may say, well, success to me looks like someone who helps people at the homeless shelter. You know, success
Sure.
looks different to every person. They may not make the most money, but in fulfillment in life, they may have a different fulfillment because of it. They may sleep better at night because of it. They may be able to help more people because of it, right? Maybe it's not a product. Maybe it's a service. I have friends that have services that they really help people. They help people, humanity and life and things like that. So as I've got a chance to see their level of success, and in their eyes, they may not be as successful as they should, but in my eyes, I look at them and I'm like, wow, like if I have 10% of what you got, like I want to learn. So I'm always, like I mentioned, I think if everybody starts out in a conversation with people with curiosity and care and concern in their heart, I think we get to the place. And so for me, over the last probably 5-6 years, that shift has come into me. It's been introduced by people I've engaged with, people I've cared for, people that I've become friends with, people that are close and dear to me. And what they've done is they poured into me to say, hey, listen, let me let you see the world through these rose-colored glasses and see the world a little different. And so that's allowed for me to look at Legacy Wealth and say, we've made a mark. We've done okay. Right? We built something from that. Look at this, right? Because I was constantly like, we haven't done enough. And that's the idea that the greed monster will never be satisfied. It's always going to be hungry. So if I don't feed it, it's like, okay, what's next? So if you ask somebody who has $100 million, what do they want? $101 million.
Sure.
So what is truly driving them, and what is success for them? I think people have to define that for themselves. But I think it truly comes down to awakening yourself and trying to figure out what's important to you and why it's important, and then ultimately being comfortable with the things that success will look like for you, and you don't have to prove it to other people.
Right. Currently, what is the size of Legacy in terms of
We
20
move
people?
every day.
Yeah.
Every day, right? I wake up in the morning, it's this number, and next day it's this number. But you know, we have this office that we're partnering with and trying to move along out in Newport. So we love that. The office in Fort Lauderdale, which is great, and then the office here in Chicago is great, and then there's a small office here in the city that we're trying to move along, but we're trying to expand. This year we're going to try to probably double in size of just feet on the streets of people. Because that legacy can't be done by just one person or two people, even
Right.
5 people, right? We think that the impact, the true impact we can have is by affecting as many people as possible, to inspiring as many people as possible. Hence why I've taken some of the role of trying to help the industry with the NAIFA opportunity.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit. So you obviously have a very strong footing now in public speaking. Is that something you were always interested in doing? Is that something that, again, kind of naturally called to you? How did you get into the whole public speaking thing before we get into NAIFA and all that?
It was performing. It's playing on the biggest stage, playing in front of 20, 30,000 people. When you're shooting a free throw, there's only one person they're paying attention to, and that's you. Yeah. And so the fear of performing in front of people, as simplistic as that sounds, it just goes away. You learn in sports how to compartmentalize the audience, the crowd, because if you go to a school like Michigan State or another, what they call a hostile environment, the people are literally standing right behind you and they're yelling anything and everything about your family. You stink, and they're the worst person on the planet. Hey, so they're yelling those things. And if you don't have the ability to block them out and listen to what's in your head, listen what's in your heart, listen to what your training is, listen to those things, you won't be able to hear it happening at the time, and you won't be able to perform optimally at that time. So being able to speak with people and engage a group of audience of people just comes down to the ability to be able to lock in, quiet the noise, listen to the message the way it's supposed to be delivered, and really try your best to leave them better than you found it. Leave the audience with something they can take away where they feel like, one, I'm inspired because of he was here. My life is a little different because I've learned, I've heard him, right?
Sure.
And then last but not least is they feel like they want to go out and they want to move now, right? Why do people do those things? Why do people go to professional speaking things? Why do they do that? So it's always been a part of kind of my DNA, is that you give more than you take. And
right.
you show up and people ask you to do something, is your knowledge and your wisdom is not yours.
Right.
Right. If you think about, wisdom is best when it's shared. That's why there were the 3 wise men who shared the wisdom amongst all the people, is because it wasn't theirs, and those who didn't share it actually lost it. So, if you think about that, our wisdom, we get it over time, and our ability to share it helps us become more and more successful because of it. So,
Is there any framework or any preparation that you've adopted that really works for you?
Just like a game.
Yeah.
Go in, just like a game. Go in a couple hours before, go in an hour before, sit quietly, look at review your notes, whatever. If you don't know it by now, you're not going to know it.
Sure.
Right? We're looking at the notes right before you go out and play. You're like, you don't really know it. Right? So, for me, it's bullet pointing. People are like, send me your sketch or your outline, what you're going to go through. And it's literally like 1 paragraph, 2, 3 words, tell the story about this, 2, 3 words, 2, 3 words, 2, 3 words. And they're like, this is it? I go, I know where I want to take it. I know what message I want to deliver. Sure. And I know what people should get out of it. And so, I'm halfway decent in it. So people ask me to come back and do it again. And, if I do it well enough, to ask me to come back and do it again. And I'm constantly tweaking it to become better as much as I can.
Right. That's one thing that impressed me about yourself early on, is seems effortless for you. Not in a nonchalant way at all, but it definitely speaks volumes, your preparation, kind of what you go through, because you're a very natural speaker and you've obviously done it before and repetition shows, but that then is translated for you, right? So let's segue into kind of NAIFA and those opportunities, those extracurriculars within what you do that I'm sure is supporting your growth within Legacy as well. I have the acronym memorized, so I want to say it. NAIFA, for those that don't know, is the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors.
There you go. Yeah,
Chris is the president-elect. How long does that term last? Is that a year? Is that more than a year?
I'm the president now. So as of January 2026. I was a president-elect in 2025.
Okay. That's why
in January 1st of this year, I went through my inauguration, so to speak, was sworn in about a month ago to my duties in DC, and we started the process 4 years ago of really uncovering what we really want to do this year, which is dynamic in nature. They've never seen anything like this, and I've got good people to help me execute it the way in which we needed to go.
Explain the progression, because you've been on the board for quite some time. You held another position as secretary. What does NAIFA do? What's the mission? And then how is Chris Gandy, how is your involvement going to create impact?
Oh, great. I'm glad you asked that. Yeah. That's a great question. So NAIFA is an organization that's been around since 1850. It was the way in which, if you wanted to buy insurance in the early 1900s, then you had to buy it through an association. You had to buy it through a kind of club, so to speak, right? And so if you bought it within this club, you had an opportunity to buy it for your family, buy it for your tractor, buy it for whatever it may be. The association was put together so then there was some sort of regulation around the guidelines, the pricing, so people can just say this is insurance, and then you couldn't do that. So there was one organization, and it was the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. They were the ones through the congressmen and the senators talked to in DC to help create actual insurance, right? So it was the first, right? It's the largest, it's the oldest. And so it's been an amazing organization over the years. It's spun off numerous organizations since then. It's spun off leadership organizations like GAMA, NELBA, which is the National Association of Leadership and Brand. It's like, so they spun off a lot of other organizations in the process. Mm-hmm. It spun off the company, or the group Finseca, which is another NAIFA spun organization. Just people visionary doing it a little different. Like, we want to focus on the actual tax stuff, or we want to focus on the actual parts of it, but it all came from one place. And so I served as a trustee. I was appointed. I ran for, it's interesting, I actually ran in Illinois to be the president of Illinois.
Okay.
And then during COVID, became the president of Illinois and president of Chicagoland, which is Illinois, Chicagoland, which is Chicago-based up north. Ran that during COVID. The year before COVID, I was supposed to go in. Ran it the year before COVID. Sent membership through the roof. I would like to say COVID assisted me because people weren't going anywhere, right? But I got the credibility for it. That's something positive that COVID did for us.
Sure.
We spun up the membership. People started engaging because what were people doing? They were behind their computers. They wanted to be connected to others. We were putting on great content, and people were like, ooh, I want to get involved. So we increased the membership here. We did so great that National was like, no one stepped in to actually run the following year. So I said, I want to run it again because I got a bad deal because COVID. Look what COVID did, right? And so I stepped in and actually was the president of Chicagoland 2 years in a row.
Okay.
Which was great. And then word on the streets was that someone in DC actually took a liking to the way we did it, the aggressiveness we did it in, and the actual vision we had for doing it and how we did it. And I was able to attract some very young talent, some motivated people to really change the look of the board. NAIFA is a traditional and very older, 50, 60-year-old, kind of older experience type of membership. I was able to attract some people that looked like me, people that were younger, people that were motivated, leading. They were the next phase of the industry, and inspire them and activate them to get involved, almost grassroots type of thing. And I was like, we can do this together. Like, I don't want to be on this island by myself. Come help me, right? Convince it. And someone in DC said, hey, we love your input at the national level. And I became a trustee the following year in DC. And I was a trustee for 4 years. I think it was 4 seasons. Okay. I was a trustee or a president in training, so to speak. And I got a chance. The one thing that NAIFA has done for me, which is kind of interesting, is it's allowed me to see leadership at different levels when you're not paid for it.
Okay.
See, because NAIFA is a volunteer organization, and without the volunteers, it doesn't have representation. But it's the only representation that Main Street America has to the government. What I mean by that is, we talk directly to the Ways and Means Committee. We talk to actually senators. I've been in senator's office. I've been in congressman's office, and we're actually talking about things that will affect you, like rising costs in healthcare. Like, those are real things that we're having conversations about. We're having conversations about educating your kids. We're having conversations about them wanting to tax the insurance proceeds, right? Them wanting to add a actual tax to how much you pay, right? So those are things that you may not realize, but people are starting to see it. Like you mentioned prior to us talking here in California, they pull back. So there's only so much insurance you can have in California on a house, right? Yeah. Well, what if California now said, well, whatever you pay in insurance, there's a 20% tax on that insurance, right? It's a real thing, right? And states have looked to do that. Why? To cover the gap of some of the budgets. We have to figure out, and not to get too political on this, but the government has to figure out a couple things. One, and we all do too, and here's a real topic. People have to figure out how to be sustainable financially on their own without the government. That's a real thing.
Yep.
Social Security was meant to be a supplemental income. It's 80% of people's primary income. It was meant to be a social system to help, it was meant to fall in line with the pensions and retirement savings, and then Social Security was meant to be the glue, the gap in between. Now it's the opposite way around. People have 80 to 90% of their money tied into Social Security, and that's going to be their livelihood. So if the government decides to change things, what happens to all those people? Right? Those social systems were meant to be a supplement, not a primary. And so, one, people need to decide financially how to live on their own and not be dependent on the government. Number two, the government won't come rescue you. You got to stop spending so much money. You have to save some money. That's a real thing, right? Yeah. We're in a world where people spend more than they make. It just is. That's natural statistics. It has nothing to do with Chris Gandy. Has nothing to do with Lorenzo. Has nothing to do with Link Creative. Has nothing to do with this podcast. People spend more than they make. That is a fact, right? That's the statistical data. And last but not least is, we have to start really starting to think about not working in the future. We were conditioned to work until you just can't work anymore. That's not the quality of life we were ever meant to be, or ever designed to be. We were meant to work so that we could take care of the things and take care of our family. Yeah. Right? We weren't meant to work until we just couldn't work anymore. And that's where people are. Well, I'm just going to work till I can't work anymore. And so quality of life is super important. And people need to get to the place where they have a good quality of life and be comfortable and stop trying to chase someone else's dream. So if you look at my role in NAIFA now, my role is to help what I call Main Street America. People you look at, your parents, people that are out hustling, trying to make an income, people that are trying to figure out after certain things happen in their families that may not go the way they want to, whether it's a marriage or divorce or something, what I call financially significant happens, for them to stop and to think about, what can I do? What is the most intelligent way for me to approach this financially? And as long as I can do it with sound financial decisions, our job is just to give them advice on how to do that. And NAIFA serves a great role in that, because we have a moral code that we swear by, that we have to adhere to outside of just the actual one that the laws have. There's a whole nother one on top of that we have to go by, that actually holds us to a higher standard, even over and above the regulation of the SEC, FINRA, and all the other ones. And so I'm leading that organization now. And we got a lot on our plate, man. We're excited. I'm going to the Treasury in a couple of weeks to, the place where they print the money. I'm going there to talk to them about some of the new accounts that are going to be coming out in the summer that people will get a chance to participate in. The ability to do testimony on certain bills and issues. Yeah, if you turn on CNBC and some of the other stuff, you might see my grill on there, and I'll be smiling and
There we go.
and testifying. I'm in the testimony on the Department of Labor.
Okay.
This idea of fiduciary responsibility. I was one of the ones that put in expert testimony on that. So if you look up the bill in D.C., I'm actually in there. So that was actually really cool to go into the Senate and listen to the hearing.
Nice.
But it's been a wonderful run. I joke because I always, in high school, here's full circle. Watch this.
And I was going to ask you, because I feel like this is where you're going, like, what is the motivation that, outside of everything you do, right, these volunteer opportunities, what is pushing you to continue to strive for more?
Well, it's not that, but I've always wanted to do something different. So listen to this. Crazy. You never know what's going to come into your life until it comes. You never know what blessings are going to come into your life until it happens, right? And in high school, my high school trip they used to go to D.C., Washington, D.C. every year. And I remember asking my mom, I want to go to that. And they were like, my mom was like, we don't have the money to go to that. You can't go. Right. Okay, got it. So my sophomore year, I was playing basketball, and I said, I want to go to D.C. She's like, you can't go to D.C. You got to play basketball. I'm like, okay, I got to go to D.C. Right. And so I never got a chance to go to D.C. Here's full circle. Sometimes you have to wait your turn. I never got a chance to go to D.C. until NAIFA brought me to D.C. And now I go to D.C. all the time, right? And I wondered, so I asked one of the people that used to go to D.C. all the time. I said, did you guys get to go in the Senate? They were like, no, like we did a Capitol tour. I was like, you didn't? Like you didn't get a chance to go in the Longworth or into any of the buildings? They were like, no. I was like, did you get a chance to talk to like any of the senators or anything? And they were like, no. I said, wow, okay, so I've gotten to do things that even my high school wasn't able to do. But you asked the question about motivation. I just simply tell you that I stay motivated because I know that, the world is round and there's a lot of opportunity out there, and I want to see it all while I have this time on the earth. I want to be able to participate in it all. And I know from my NAIFA experience and with others is that people want to be inspired. They really do. In life, they want to surround themselves with positive thinking people, and people that can make an impact. When playing in here in Chicago, I learned Michael Jordan couldn't win a game on his own.
Right.
He couldn't. So he has to surround himself with smart and talented people that makes him a better version of himself.
Right.
And so I try to do that with some of my NAIFA constituents.
What are some of those things that keep you focused, disciplined, consistent, outside of more of the business stuff, right? I know you're a family man. You are very much so into boxing, health and wellness, things of that nature.
That's right.
What are some of those things personal to Chris that keep you grounded, keep you dialed in to do these things that you've set out to do?
Well, the discipline comes in sports always.
Yeah.
Sports is always fun. So I always have to figure out how to stay athletic and how to keep what I call the athletic edge, right? So, my body doesn't work the same way it used to. I can still play basketball. I just can't play at the pace I used to. And at the end of the day, it's a young man's game, right? So I have to brace up. I have double braces and things like that. They look like a RoboCop out there. But now, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, someone was saying, you know what, boxing is just as hard as basketball. Yeah, stop it. It's boxing. Come on, man. It's like, So I took up. I started boxing a couple of years ago. It's truly a hard. It's one of the hardest sports I've ever played. But because it's
taxing,
it's just you. And how far can you go?
Right.
How much can you give? Right. And it's peaceful because you can just go in and forget. Sometimes I'll be in there an hour and a half. We've been in there 2 hours and 15 minutes. 6,000 calories less later. You're trying to figure out, okay, where am I at? But
yeah,
it's the thing that keeps me motivated the most is that I never want my son to think that his dad can't do something. So you
Right.
know, it's important to me. You mentioned family. You know, it's important to me that he sees his dad as somebody who can do a lot. Right? If he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And I learned that from other people. If he can do it, I can do it. I can
Love
do it
it.
a little bit better. Right? And so inspiring him to do those things. Also, other young professionals are coming up as, you know, when I was coming up, I saw somebody and I was like, man, I want to be like him when I grow up, right? And
Right.
man, if that guy would just mentor me or spend some time with me, man, maybe he'll check on me, that type of thing. So I built a long-standing career off of gravitating to successful people because I can learn from them. Not only learn from them, but one of my mentors told me a long time ago, nothing in this world is new. It's all borrowed and repurposed. So he goes, listen, the best thing about this is you can borrow and repurpose everything I'm telling you and make it your own. Just add another word. I said, really? And so, you know, borrowing and repurposing things in life and coming up with my own little, you know, unique sayings and things like that is always kind of cool. When I hear other people in my office start to say, hey, I got a Gandyism, I was like, what? Excuse me? Give it to me. So they've started to write down some of those things, and it's kind of ongoing joke since I'm the oldest one in the office, which is shocking at this point.
That's funny. Before we wrap up, I want to do a little bit of a rapid fire round here. Through your eyes, right, there's so much information out there now through social media, through mass media and stuff like that, of like these outlets just pumping information and agenda down people's throats, candidly, right? Through your eyes and from what you've seen over the past couple decades, what do you think are still the most foundational things a young professional, aspiring, you know, business individual could do to set themselves up for financial success?
Well, I think the main thing is the main thing, and just come up with a plan. I think so many times people react to plans.
Yeah.
They're reacting to what they see on social media. They're reacting to, I need this product, right? I need IBC, infinite banking. I need, you know, this hedge fund, or I need this ETF, or I need gold, or, you know, it's constant, right? And you have to think for a moment that just because it looks good to me doesn't mean it's good for me. Right? You know, one of the mentors told me that just because it looks good to you, he had a little twang in his voice too, to say, just because it looked good to you doesn't mean it's good for you. I was like, what? What does that mean? I never knew what that meant.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good products out there, but no one has the market cornered on ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I know this fits into my plan, my strategy? Let me stop and think what's important to me and why it's important, and stop reacting to everything. So if I'm a young professional, man, I start putting money away. I start buying into the S&P early, so you can start to realize there's ups and downs, and there's that type of thing. Start saving your money. You know, there's no shortcuts. I don't believe in, you know, this may be the first time you might have heard this. The majority of young people under the age of 30 don't believe that Social Security will actually be there by the time they get there. So if that's the case, then you got to do something to protect yourself and to save for yourself. And so that would be something. And then also find a mentor. I think finding a mentor is great.
Yeah.
Because most people that are successful want to help other people. They do. I see it now. There's people. I was at a conference, and I was feeling really good because we had a great year. I had a great year a couple years ago, and I'm walking around like, yeah, you know, tough, you know, whatever. And I met this guy, very unassuming, super unassuming. And we're sitting, and I was like, yeah, I had this kind of year, you know, feeling really good about things. And he looks up at me, he goes, well, that's interesting. He goes, I did 30 million in a month. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm feeling good with my 3-4 million, you know, like that, those type numbers. And it just humbles you. It humbles you because you start to realize that the opportunity, you've only begun to scratch the surface of the opportunity that's ahead of you. So we've got so much work to do between NAIFA, NAIFA, what I'm trying to do right now, which is, I'm glad you gave me this platform. I'm trying to change the narrative of how we've existed in the past. What got us here won't get us to where we got to go.
Right.
We need to integrate who we are into society and be part of the DNA of people having monetary and financial conversations. Is that how is it that you can have a financial conversation with someone without talking about this bill that might change it? Right? Like, how do you have a conversation about a mutual fund without talking about the regulation behind it?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. Right? And so if that is the case, how do we integrate that in? Just, it's part of like the way in which we make financial decisions, right? How do we do that? How do we bring NAIFA from 1850 or 1890 into the present fast through the use of AI, digital technology, through the use of progressive thought, creative thinking on membership, all those things, right? How do we do that? You know, I've activated each state to bring us ideas and now start to integrate those into the very fabric of this 120-year organization.
Yeah.
And they're looking at me like, whoa, what is going on? But you know, change is not always bad. Change is only bad if you don't embrace it.
Right.
And remember, I think I started out this conversation with, I always start with curiosity, because I really truly want to understand where you come from, where you're going, and how I can help you get there. And I think NAIFA's a lot of the same. Legacy Wealth Group is scratching the surface of what it's capable of doing. You know, I'm just a chief. I just help put it together. I planted the seed. Our people will water it and grow it, and hopefully that people hear your talk, our conversation. They pick up something,
Right.
and they say, you know, I may not be an athlete, but I learned the fact that through this conversation, there's some things I should be doing. There's some I should be creative in my own thought. I need to come up with my own ideas of what success looks like, and then pursue those with passion and desire for the rest of their lives. Right? You shouldn't have to apologize for passionately pursuing the things you want in life. That's not the real deal. So hopefully that's the case, and you know, people follow us and follow you and keep doing the deal.
Well, we're going to get the word out there. That was very well said. That was a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Tell the people into your camera there where they could find you, personal handles, Legacy Wealth Group handles, the whole thing.
Yep. So Legacy Wealth Group is www.TLWGLLC, the Legacy Wealth Group LLC, TLWGLLC.com. We're there. People can put their name and say, hey, I want to talk to that guy. I want to have a consultation. There's a lot of advisors around the country that can help. But there's a lot. I mean, there's just a lot. We look to just add value. We're going to be going around. We're blessed, really. I didn't come up with it, but I had an idea that we took to 4 of the congressmen. And this is how NAIFA as a volunteer is helping our communities. I did have an idea of taking financial literacy into districts that are governed by constituents and ran by people. And a couple of the senators bought into it and said, we have to do that because of the changes, how fast the government is changing.
Right.
And I said, let's do it. I said, but I don't want to call it financial literacy, because as soon as we call it financial literacy, everybody puts it in a bucket and nobody can define it.
Sure.
Right? What is financial literacy? I have 10 people. They all tell me differently. But when I go to McDonald's, everybody gets the same burger. So how do we have the same results? I said, we need to talk about financial empowerment. How do we empower people to be a better version of themselves financially, regardless of what they have going on in their lives? I go, if we do that, your people will rise to the top. That's what they will do. And they were like, we love it. Okay, so we're imploring these. We got 4 that we got the okay on. So we're going to roll these out this year. And we're going to roll them out with our NAIFA partners that are in districts around the country. We're the only organization that has representation in every single district. So every district that's out there. What that means is, for some people who don't follow government, is that your local congressman and your local senator have to do what's in the best interest of their representation. They're representing the people in D.C. We have representation in every single district.
Wow.
We're the same things. And as we roll these out, we're going to roll these out in partnership with their districts, the constituents, the people, just like you guys, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to roll that out. And then I'm going to pilot it nationally. So
beautiful.
You'll see us on a bunch of different things, waving like
go.
we're here, and we're here to to uplift the people, to empower the people, just to try our best to give back dignity to humanity.
Yeah.
Because I think we've missed it. We've lost it along the way, and we can get it back.
Amazing. Well, you heard it here first. Powerful messaging. Chris, thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, it's a joy. I love it.
Amazing.
Thanks for having me.
Link Live. That's a wrap.